Well, well, well. Look who finally read the terms and conditions. After 2 decades of pixel casinos, premium currencies, and $40 skins that somehow didn't include pants, the EU just figured out gamers are being ripped off. It only took 20 years, thousands of horror stories, and one $35 Captain America skin. But the case has finally been cracked. Microtransactions might be just a little predatory.
Oh damn. Oh damn. Oh damn!
Gamers have known the game was rigged since the first overpriced loot box. We've been bled dry by bundle deals, tricked by premium currencies, and guilt-tripped into buying seasonal passes that expire faster than milk. And now, in the year of our wallet, 2025, a room full of very serious adults in Brussels has stumbled across this revelation we've been screaming about since Horse Armor and Oblivion. So they've cobbled together a list of key principles like it's a revolutionary breakthrough. Show real prices, don't scam kids, maybe don't design your storefront like a slot machine. Truly groundbreaking stuff. Except this time, it's not just talk. This might be the warm-up act for something bigger. The Digital Fairness Act. A real law in the making that could force studios to rethink how they monetize games altogether. It all starts with this document. 7 so-called key principles that read like the EU just discovered how game stores actually work. It's not a law, yet, but it's the clearest shot across the industry's bow we've seen in years. It comes courtesy of the Consumer Protection Cooperation Network, basically the European Union's regulatory Avengers. If the Avengers had a meeting about price transparency and then filed paperwork. They've spent the last few months drafting a formal checklist of everything publishers have been doing to quietly drain your wallet. Here's what's on it. Real prices must be shown, not just a gem count or a sparkle token estimate. Actual human currency. Currency bundles can't be engineered to leave you just a few coins short on purpose. Games can't bury transactions behind 2 or 3 layers of fake currencies. Targeting kids with manipulative pricing is finally being treated like the garbage it is. And publishers are expected to stop yanking away paid content just because they feel like pruning the servers. And that last one? We're gonna get back to that. Ubisoft made sure of that. The message is direct. If your storefront is designed like a casino in Fortnite drag, the EU just stepped in wearing a clipboard and a frown. These principles aren't enforceable by law, but they're the groundwork for something that is. The Digital Fairness Act is a legislative follow-up that could actually put teeth behind this polite little warning. The industry has spent years perfecting the art of getting players to spend more money while thinking that they're spending less. For the first time, someone in power actually seems interested in tearing that illusion down. Now, it would be easy to just shrug this off. Just another list of best practices, another round of corporate tap dancing when they just keep doing what they've been doing anyway. We've seen it before, but this one actually hits different because it calls out the playbook itself. This isn't about punishing individual games for bad behavior. It's about dismantling the entire system of manipulation that's been normalized for over a decade. Price obfuscation, fake currency inflation, FOMO timers disguised as limited time offers, all of the dirty tricks are finally being named out loud in a policy document. For the gaming industry, that's a problem. Because the second regulators define something as harmful, it stops being a business model and becomes a liability. And somehow, horses are responsible for this too. It began with Oblivion's Horse Armor, $2.50 for a cosmetic saddle in a single-player game. That was our warning shot. The joke. The meme. The moment everyone realized game companies might actually start charging us for nothing. Fast forward nearly 20 years and it's Star Stable Online, an MMO full of sparkle ponies and targeted ads for 10-year-olds that finally triggered EU regulators to step in. Reports of kids dropping real money on overpriced horses caught the attention of a very scary group of people, angry parents with receipts. Horses started the fire, and if the EU has its way, horses might be the reason it finally gets put out. Let's not pretend this caught anyone by surprise. The same studios that spend millions marketing player-first experiences are the ones designing storefronts like a behavioral economics experiment in a secret lab. We're not talking about loot boxes or battle passes anymore. We're talking about the entire purchasing ecosystem, engineered from the ground up to separate players from their cash without triggering a second thought. It starts with fake currencies. You don't buy a skin, you buy 1,000 Sparkle Bucks and then spend 750 of them. Now you're stuck with leftover currency designed to be useless unless you spend more to buy more Sparkle Bucks, which of course is the point. Then there's the bundle trap. Prices are set just out of reach, so you always have to overspend to buy what you actually want. Marvel Rivals just tried to charge $35 for a Captain America skin by bundling the currency in a way that forced players to buy more than they needed. Engineered greed that's been perfected over decades. And some games go further by adding multiple currencies just to blur the lines. You don't spend money, you buy gems to convert to tokens to exchange for credits to unlock a skin. Somewhere in there is a price tag, but good luck finding it. None of this is accidental. It's tested, tuned, focus grouped, and until now, it's gone unchecked. This is the business model the EU is pushing back against. Not just shady transactions, shady systems. Because if your monetization scheme only works when the player stops thinking clearly, maybe it shouldn't be working at all. The EU isn't just cracking down for the sake of balance. It's doing it because the people these systems exploit the hardest are the ones least equipped to fight back. We're talking about vulnerable consumers. And no, that's not just legal jargon. In this case, it means two very specific groups of people: children and adults with impulse control issues, otherwise known as whales. Kids are the obvious one. Flashy visuals, confusing currencies, limited time pressure. These are features when you're designing for addiction, not for fun. The key principles go out of their way to say it. Just because a game isn't marketed to kids doesn't mean it's designed to manipulate them. And if your store is bright, bouncy, and begging parents for credit card information, congratulations! You're in the EU's crosshairs. But the other group might be even more telling. The document specifically calls out players who spend excessive amounts of real-world money, and people who might be struggling with addiction, gambling tendencies, or poor impulse control. The industry calls them whales, and the EU calls them what they are: vulnerable. And this is where it all starts to shift. If your players need legal protection from your design choices, you're not running a game, you're running a trap. Now, this crackdown didn't come out of nowhere. The industry's been pulling these stunts for over a decade, but every scam needs a tipping point. And this time, it was Star Stable, a seemingly harmless horse-themed MMO aimed at kids, packed with premium currencies, overpriced cosmetics, and time-sensitive sales. The perfect storm of vulnerability and monetization. And when parents finally noticed just how much was being funneled through that store, regulators had no choice but to step in. But Star Stable was just the spark. The truth is that the EU has been circling this for a while. They've already gone after loot boxes, app store labeling, and deceptive free-to-play models. This is just the next phase, and it's not stopping here. The key principles are just the draft notes. What comes next is the Digital Fairness Act, a proposed law that would turn these recommendations into enforceable rules. Not guidelines, not suggestions, actual consequences. Because it turns out when you spend a decade turning storefronts into slot machines, eventually someone's going to show up and pull the plug. If the Digital Fairness Act passes, it won't just be a slap on the wrist. It could rewrite how games handle monetization across the entire EU. No more hiding prices behind made-up currencies, no more bundle traps designed to oversell, no more storefronts that feel like financial shell games, and no more believing you own something just because there was a buy button. Which brings us to Ubisoft. Earlier this year, they shut down The Crew. Not just the servers, the entire game. Players didn't just lose online functionality, Ubisoft revoked the licenses, erasing the game from people's libraries. Paid content, gone, like it was never there. Principle 6 of the EU's key principle document calls this out directly. Companies shouldn't be allowed to sell you digital content and then pull it whenever the money dries up or the players leave. In theory, the Digital Fairness Act could make that kind of stunt a punishable offense. Here in the US, 2 California gamers had to file a class action lawsuit just to challenge it. And yes, the US is slow, messy, and reactive, but let's not pretend the EU is lightning fast either. It took them 2 decades and a $40 pony to finally draft a strongly worded PDF. Still, this is different. The EU isn't just asking for better behavior, they're building a legal framework for future action. And that's the part that might actually stick. Once it's codified, enforcement becomes possible. Not likely to be fast, not guaranteed to be consistent, but possible. That's the thing the industry fears most. Not the fines, not the regulations, the precedent. Because once that line is drawn, other regions will start feeling the pressure, especially the US, where digital ownership is still treated like a vague suggestion. Most of the protections players enjoy come from storefront policies, not the law. And when those fail, the fallback is a lawsuit and some damage control. So no, don't expect Congress to leap into action, but if Europe lays down the first real framework, publishers will either adapt across the board or get caught maintaining 2 different standards, one for compliance and one for profit. The industry has spent years perfecting this system that thrives on confusion, pressure, and ignorance. It worked while regulators looked the other way and players just shrugged. So publishers learned they could get away with anything as long as it sparkled. Now someone's finally putting it in writing, not out of passion for games, but because the manipulation got way too obvious to ignore. The key principles are overdue, and the Digital Fairness Act is a threat. It's a threat that says game monetization isn't harmless, and we're done pretending that it is. Horses started this mess, and now they're dragging predatory monetization to the glue factory. That's all for today. You're welcome.